Durval should die for his crimes.
We're apart. Now they're hunting me. That's it. I'm already gone. Okay, they're heading back. Lucky me.
The Oseram that tried to kill our Sun King? Traitors, the whole tribe of them.
That's a load off.
Never let anyone say the car just slack off. As the sun witnesses, we put our backs in.
It was Derval. He tried to kill the Sun King.
무서워. 오. 우와.かわいい。ゆっくり舐めてる。ああ、気持ちいい。あ 薬つけて。ああ。愛するして。おお、気持ちいい気持ちいい。おお。
think I'm in the clear. You'll do. Just go about your business. They're scanning for me. You're going down. Red light means trouble. Hardy little plant. You'll help.
The Pocket Shitstorm Tour, Day 5. The Grey Swarms opened for Turtle Smash the night I OD'd here. Or so the police report said, anyway. I was 15 years old. When I woke in the hospital, 2 days later, your face was the first thing I saw.
tired of always dying to various enemies in Horizon Zero Dawn? Are you tired of getting roasted like a chicken by the fire bellowback? Then look no further, because here's my guide on how to take down the fire bellowback. So chances are, if you're here right now, you either want to see me take down one of these bad boys, or you're having problems taking them down yourself and you want to see my tactics for destroying the Are you tired of always dying? Take down. Are you tired of always dying to various enemies?
Guys, welcome back to our Horizon Zero Dawn Master Machine Hunting series. Horizon Forbidden West is just days away at this point, and I've got just a couple more Zero Dawn machines left to round out this series. In this video, we're covering Bellowback. Actually pretty tough machines until you get late game equipment. I feel like Bellowbacks are kind of discounted in most people's minds. Maybe it's because they aren't quite as flashy as other machines like Stormbirds and Thunderjaws, or maybe it's because they're not involved in many quests, or because most of their sites are a little off the beaten trail. Whatever it is, I think pretty much all of us can relate to fighting a Bellowback at some point in the early game and saying, yeah, I think I'm going to come back to those when I have some better gear. Well, that's because they are really pretty tough for Aloy to take on before leveling up a bit and getting some better gear. If you try to take on Bellowbacks in the Nora territory using just the default bow and regular arrows that you have at the start of the game, well, good luck with that. On top of some strong melee attacks, Bellowbacks have some elemental attacks that are honestly pretty devastating also. And remember, Bellowbacks are also unique because they come in two varieties, fire and freeze, and you need to fight each one a little differently. Well, I've got the strategy for both, so let's dive into it. Let's start with the variety I think is a little bit easier, the fire Bellowback. You'll see why I think the fire ones are a little easier in a minute, but first off, I think we can all agree that the obvious targets on any Bellowback are the gullets under their necks and the gigantic cargo sacks on their backs. If you can damage these enough on either variety, they'll explode and deal a ton of damage. And that's important because Bellowbacks actually have a pretty decent amount of health, 1600 HP to be exact, which is a lot more than any other machine you have to deal with in the early game. So the question is, how do we deal enough damage to get the gullet and cargo sack to explode? Because you actually do need to deal quite a lot of damage to them before they will. Well, if you try to do this with the regular arrows you have by default at the start of the game, it's going to be really tough. In the early game, your best damage arrows by far are precision arrows, which means we need a sharp shot bow. I'll be using the blue version here with a couple of basic handling mods, but you could use the green version too. However, I would recommend you skip to the blue one if you can, because you'll get access to tear blast arrows as well. Those won't be much help on the Bellowbacks, but tear blast arrows are super useful on other machines like shell walkers. I'll leave a link to my shell walker video in the description if you want to learn how to use tear blast arrows. Anyway, we're going to deal damage with precision arrows, but there's a good chance you already figured that out. So what's the next step? Well, another problem is Bellowbacks actually move around quite a lot, which can make it hard to get a good angle on the gullet or cargo sack. So what we need is a way to stop the Bellowback from moving around so we can hit these weak points more easily and cause the explosions. My recommendation here is to shock the Bellowbacks. This will stun them for a short period, making it much easier to line up shots on those vulnerable components. I prefer shocking machines with a sling, but you could use a tripcaster and shock wires too. Shock wires deal more shock damage, but with a sling, but you could use a tripcaster to line up shots on those vulnerable components. I prefer shocking machines with a sling, but you could use a tripcaster and shock wires too. Shock wires deal more shock damage, but you have to bait the machine into them. If you want to use a sling, you'll need the blue Karja sling at a minimum to get access to shock bombs. I actually have mine modded with just freeze mods here because the base shock damage will be plenty for us. With a tripcaster, you could step down to a green one and you'd be just fine. Whichever you prefer. Our first step is to get the Bellowback shocked. Now, before you get too excited, there's a couple more steps we want to do with a fire Bellowback specifically before exploding its cargo sack. While it's shocked, we want to freeze it using either freeze bombs or freeze arrows. That's because freezing a machine gives us a massive damage multiplier when using arrows to deal damage. I prefer freezing machines with freeze arrows because they're cheaper to craft compared to freeze bombs. Damage. I prefer freezing machines with freeze arrows because they're cheaper to craft compared to freeze bombs. We'll be using a blue Karja warbow here with a couple of basic freeze mods on it. So now that we've frozen the Bellowback with some arrows, we'll take a couple of shots at the cargo sack to weaken it a bit, but we actually don't want to explode it just yet. Remember, this is a fire Bellowback, and exploding the cargo sack will cause it to burn, which will remove the freeze effect. Remember, you can only have one elemental status effect at a time. So while it's still frozen, we want to take advantage of that huge damage multiplier and lay into it with precision arrows. You'll see that this really knocks down into. Remember, you can only have one elemental status effect at a time. So while it's still frozen, we want to take advantage of that huge damage multiplier and lay into it with precision arrows. You'll see that this really knocks down its health pretty fast. Now once the freeze effect wears off, you should have dealt enough damage to hit the cargo sack one or two more times to cause the explosion and finish it off. So that's how you deal with fire Bellowbacks, but what about freeze ones? Well, the optimal strategy is slightly different. Whereas the fire Bellowback was weak to freeze, the freeze Bellowback is not. But the first step is the same. We want to get it stunned by shocking it. Now instead of freezing it while it's stunned, you just want to get in as many shots as possible on its cargo sack. Remember, dealing damage to a stunned or tied down machine will make that status effect wear off very quickly. So the Bellowback is going to get up pretty fast, but you should have enough time to get in a few good shots with your precision arrows before it does. When it does get up, it's best to shock it again straight away so you can get back to dealing damage to that cargo sack. With a couple more shots, the cargo sack will explode, dealing a bunch of damage to the Bellowback and also freezing it. Now you want to lay into it with precision arrows to deal as much damage as possible before the freeze effect wears off. If you aren't able to kill it while it's frozen the first time, you could shock it again and try to Bellowback and also freezing it. Now you want to lay into it with precision arrows to deal as much damage as possible before the freeze effect wears off. If you aren't able to kill it while the sack will explode, dealing a bunch of damage to the Bellowback and also freezing it. Now you want to lay into it with precision arrows to deal as much damage as possible before the freeze effect wears off. If you aren't able to kill it while it's frozen, enough time to get in a few good shots with your precision arrows before it does. When it does get up, it's best to shock it again straight away so you can get back to dealing damage to that cargo sack. With a couple more shots, the cargo sack will explode, dealing a bunch of damage to the Bellowback and also freezing it. Now you want to lay into it with precision arrows to deal as much damage as possible before the freeze effect wears off. If you aren't able to kill it while it's frozen the first time, you could shock it again and try to explode the gullet, or you could start burning it with fire arrows. Remember, the freeze bellowback is weak to fire, so unlike the fire bellowback, a burn effect will actually do a decent amount of damage to a freeze one. Alright, that was a lot of steps, so let's bellowback. A burn effect will actually do a decent amount of damage to a freeze one. Alright, that was a lot of steps, so let's see how to put it all together into live combat. Okay guys, we're here at a bellowback site. This is the one that's in the northeast of the Nora territory, which spawns one fire and one freeze bellowback, so that'll be a good demo for us to see both. My difficulty level is very hard. That's what I'm using for all the videos in this series. And then I'll also show you real quick my outfit is the Nora Survivor Medium. And I'm picking that. It's a really great, cheap early game outfit, mid game outfit. And it has good like elemental resistance across the board. So having the fire and freeze resistance against the bellowbacks will definitely help us out with their elemental attacks. And then I've put a basic melee resist mod on there because they have some melee attacks too. But speaking of the elemental attacks, in the bottom left here, I'm going to tee up our elemental resistance potions, which help a whole lot against our elemental resistance potions, which help a whole lot against any kind of elemental attack. So that's going to be big for us against the bellowbacks, especially in the early game. So we'll go for the fire one first, but I'll actually put on both of these potions. And the first thing we want to do, remember, is shock them with some shock bombs. Take 3 shock bombs to do this. So now that he's shocked, I'm going to go for some freeze arrows. And we'll just freeze him while he's stunned. And just kind of keep avoiding this watcher. We'll get a couple shots on this cargo sack here. And you can hit them on the bottom part, this black part here. You can hit that. That'll work. But I'm not going to hit it again. I've hit it twice, and I know one more arrow is going to blow it up. So I'm going to actually just hit him in the body while he's frozen here, because we still get that big damage multiplier. And notice I'm not fully drawing my bow. You don't need to fully draw your bow to get full damage. So you can shoot a lot faster if you get comfortable just partially drawing. So you can see he's almost dead already. And there's our potions helping us out against his fire. So we'll blow this up now. One more shot to blow it up. One more, because he's not frozen anymore. We're not getting that multiplier. So there we go. We got the freeze one taken care of. So now with
Letting the Asaram take Derval? They'll give him a rap on the knuckles and let him go.
The Sun King's grown too soft. Too much Oseram influenced the palace. What's he thinking, letting Dervahl live?
Probably going to need it.
A little sweat and hard work never hurt anyone.
By the sun, I'll
Tired.
be beat by the
I've
time
worked
this is
enough
done.
to last a lifetime.
Lucky the Gnome was there to protect the Sun King.
Never let anyone say the target.
Good for an old remedy. Low and quiet does it. That's it. Nothing to see here. Didn't see that coming, huh? Take some of the heat off me. Here they come. Can stop tensing up.
Oseram tries to kill the Sun King, and Honora saves his life.
Welcome back to my Horizon Zero Dawn Master Machine Hunting series. Welcome back to my Horizon. Are unique machines because of their ability to manipulate gravity. This enhances some very strong melee and ranged attacks, like the Shrapnel Blast and Gravity Purge. I also find that Behemoth's attacks are particularly difficult to avoid because they have extended animations and a delay before damage is dealt that makes it tricky to time your dodge. I'm sure Guerrilla did this intentionally to make the Behemoths extra hard, and it definitely works. So Behemoths are tough on their own, but what really makes them difficult is that you'll always find them accompanied by Longlegs, which are tough machines themselves. If you'd like some pointers on Longlegs, I'll leave a link to my video on them in the description. Anyway, if you come across the Behemoth Convoy, you'll have to deal with one Behemoth and one Longleg, which isn't terrible. However, the convoy is often passing by other machine sites, so it can quickly turn into a giant mess of a fight. But most of us are familiar with Behemoths from their single site in the northwest corner of the map. This site always spawns 2 Behemoths and 2 Longlegs, so it's quite the challenge. On top of that, we all pass by this site relatively early in the game on our way to Maker's End. Now if you're like me, you went ahead and tried to take these cool new machines down as soon as you saw them for the first time. And also like me, they probably smacked you pretty good. Well, I've fought quite a few Behemoths since that first time, and I'm here to show you that with some key weapons and a good strategy, you can take them on even at that first encounter. So first off, we're going to want to deal with those Longlegs so they don't interfere while we're fighting the Behemoths. Let's focus on the southern one first. This Longleg patrols a path that takes it right under a log pile trap. Now if you've never noticed these before, I don't blame you. The game doesn't do a great job teaching you to use these, and they mostly show up in hunting grounds. Basically, you can hit a log pile trap with an arrow to knock the logs loose and have them come crashing down onto a machine. This is actually a really strong tactic because not only does it deal a ton of damage, it's also relatively quiet so you won't alert other machines. For this Longleg, we want to wait until it's walked just past the center of the log pile before we hit it with an arrow. That's because it hops back as the logs start falling. If you time it right, you'll be able to kill this first Longleg with nothing but the logs. Now that we've taken care of that one, we want to run over to the northern Longleg. To deal with this one, we're going to start off with a silent strike. Now, I don't think a lot of players realize that you can silent strike a machine at any time as long as they aren't in red alert mode. Even if their alert level is yellow, you can still do it. It takes a bit of patience, but we can run up behind this second Longleg and deal a bunch of spear damage with a silent strike. Now, if you watched my Longleg video, you know the next thing we want to do is hit the sparker canister on its back with a shock arrow. This will cause an explosion that deals a bunch of damage to the Longleg and also stuns it. Go ahead with a critical hit to finish it off. At this point, the Behemoths will run over to investigate the explosion. Just like the Rock Breakers, our lives are going to be a lot easier if we can deal with just one Behemoth at a time. So we want to start tying them both down with a rope caster. Remember, a machine will stay tied down for 90 seconds as long as you don't deal any damage to it. Once you've got the first Behemoth tied down, it's important that you bait the second one a little ways away before tying it down. That's because our next step is to hit one of the freeze canisters on the first Behemoth's back with a freeze arrow. This causes a freeze explosion that freezes the Behemoth and also deals damage to it and anything nearby, which is why we don't want the other Behemoth nearby. Remember, we want to leave that one tied up for now, and damaging it would set it free. So now with our frozen Behemoth, we want to focus on dealing damage. Remember, arrows have a huge damage multiplier on frozen machines, so we want to take advantage of that and deal damage as quickly as possible. The best target is the force loader canisters on the Behemoth's neck. If you can hit one of them 2 or 3 times, it will explode and rip off some of the adjacent canisters at the same time, causing a ton of damage. Do this to a couple, rip off some of the adjacent canisters at the same time, causing a ton of damage. Do this to a couple of canisters and the behemoth will be down before you know it. Now of course, once you've exploded the freeze canister on that first behemoth, it will get free of its ropes and come after you. To pull this strategy off, you need to keep your cool and the behemoth will be down before you know it. Now of course, once you've exploded the freeze canister on that first behemoth, it will get free of its ropes and come after you. To pull this strategy off, you need to keep your cool and focus on timing your dodges well. A good rule of thumb with the behemoths is to wait a split second longer than you think you need to before dodging. Like I mentioned before, many of the behemoth's attacks have a long wind-up animation, so it's very easy to dodge too early. Do your best to get this timing down and remember to use concentration and hunter reflexes to land shots on the force loader canisters while the behemoth is frozen. Before you know it, you'll have the first behemoth down and you'll be able to repeat these steps with the second one. So, let's take a quick look at gear and then we'll get into the live combat. Let's take a look at the outfit first. We'll use the Nora Protector Medium. This is a great all-arounder for the early to mid-game because it's relatively inexpensive and has high melee damage resistance. Most of the behemoth's attacks are melee-based, so this will help us out. I've put a mid-tier blue melee resist weave in the mod slot to boost this stat even further. As for weapons, first we're going to need a rope caster. Now, unlike rock breakers, you can actually get away with using the blue Karja rope caster with behemoths. I've put a few basic handling mods on mine so it shoots a little using the blue Karja. First, we're going to need a rope caster. Now, unlike rock breakers, you can actually get away with using the blue Karja rope caster with behemoths. I've put a few basic handling mods on mine so it shoots a little faster, but you should load yours up with as much handling as possible. If you can, I would highly recommend picking up the purple shadow version. It will let you tie down behemoths with fewer ropes, and you can use it on big machines like rock breakers, thunderjaws, and stormbirds. Next up, we have the blue Karja warbow that gives us access to freeze and shock arrows, both of which we're going to need. Since we're going to be triggering elemental explosions from machine components, freeze and shock mods won't matter, so I just have some basic handling mods on here so we can load and shoot a little faster. Freeze and shock mods won't matter, so I just be triggering elemental explosions from machine components. Freeze and shock mods won't matter, so I just have some basic handling mods on here so we can load and shoot a little faster. Finally, we'll want precision arrows for dealing damage, so I'm going to use the Shadow Sharpshot bow. Now you could use the Karja or even the basic Sharpshot bows, but you'll struggle to deal damage fast enough with those because they have fewer mod slots to load up on handling and damage. I would highly recommend investing. Now you could use the Karja or even arrows for dealing damage, so I'm going to use the Shadow Sharpshot bow. Now you could use the Karja or even the basic Sharpshot bows, but you'll struggle to deal damage fast enough with those because they have fewer mod slots to load up on handling and damage. I would highly recommend investing in the Shadow version as soon as you can. It's a great damage dealer for the mid to late game. On mine I've put a mid-tier blue handling mod and a couple of damage mods as well. Overall, I think this weapon loadout is pretty reasonable for somebody to get before they come across behemoths for the first time. Taking a look at skills, as usual we'll want hunter reflexes and concentration, both of which give us a slow-mo effect that will make it easier to aim at the freeze and force loader canisters on the behemoths. We're also going to want silent strike and critical hit. Now eventually you'll want double and triple shot as well as fast reload, which will help you deal damage much faster, but these aren't necessary for this strategy. Quick side reload, you'll want silent strike and critical hit. Now eventually you'll want double and triple shot as well as fast reload, which will help you deal damage much faster, but these aren't necessary for this strategy. Quick side reload, you'll want silent strike and critical hit. Now eventually you'll want double and triple shot as well as fast reload, which will help you deal damage much faster, but these aren't necessary for this strategy. Quick side note, I've also removed all the damage mods from my spear to make this demo as realistic as possible for someone coming across behemoths for the first time. Alright, let's jump into the live combat. Okay, so we're here at the behemoth site, the only one on the map, and I'll just show you my difficulty level real quick. It's very hard, just like every video in the series. And so what's unique with the behemoths, because they only have this one site, there's always two of them here, but there's also always two long legs, which is really annoying because they make the fight into a mess if you don't take care of them first. So we actually are going to take them out before we deal with the behemoths. And if you guys, we're at the southern long leg here, if you guys didn't know, you can hit these logs. Sometimes these are around the map, and they'll do a ton of damage if you can time that right onto any machine. So you basically want to wait till that long leg's just a little bit past the center of the logs to do that. So we'll head over and deal with the northern long leg now. And we can highlight his track real quick. So he just kind of goes around this rock outcropping. So the way we're going to deal with this guy is we're going to silent strike him. And if you guys didn't know, you can silent strike a machine even if, as long as their alert level's not red. So even if their alert level's yellow, which is going to be here in a second, I'll slide in here. So even though he's yellow there, the symbol on top, we can still silent strike him. And then when he's down briefly, we want to hit a spark arrow on one of his, or a shock arrow on one of his shot canisters on his back. And if we need to, we can crit him one more time, and that takes care of him. So now the behemoths obviously heard the explosion. They know we're here. And we want to start roping this one down. You can tell, even when they're partially roped, it like interrupts their attacks. You kind of saw that here with this one a second ago. So he's fully roped. There we go. Now we want to bait the other one away from him, because when we cause the explosion by hitting the freeze canisters, we don't really want them near each other because it has a pretty big damage radius. And if there's any damage dealt, it will want to get away from them when they do this one. If there's any damage dealt, even from like the blast of the freeze canister, it'll release both of them from the ropes. So we want to have one of them roped down while we're dealing with the other. That's why you want to get away from that. Okay, so now that this one's fully roped down and we have the full 90 seconds on him, I'm going to head back to the other one because he's almost unroped. We'll switch over to our freeze arrows, and I just want to use concentration and knock this canister on his back. And then we'll tee up our precision arrows, scan him, and we want to focus on hitting him in the neck and hopefully hitting the same canister a couple times in a row, like that. Hitting him in the neck, and then we'll tee up our precision arrows and knock this canister on his back. And then we'll tee up our precision arrows, concentration, and knock this canister on his back. And then we'll tee up our precision arrows, scan him, and we want to focus on hitting him in the neck and hopefully hitting the same canister a couple times in a row, like that. You can see like that did like half of his health is gone. So we'll try and do that on the other side as well. Didn't quite get it there. There we go. Take a healing potion. A lot of the behemoth's attacks are hard to dodge because they kind of pause before they really do them. So you definitely have to get used to the timing. Practice that a little bit. It's frustrating at first for sure. So we'll hit this guy. And we'll scan him also. Get ready with our precision arrows. And dodge because they kind of pause. There we go. Take a healing potion. A lot of the behemoth's attacks are hard to dodge because they kind of pause.